Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Speedrunners and Coffee, the show where we find out about the origins of all your favorite speedrunners. My guest has been running since 2014, and they are quite prolific in the first-person shooter speedruns, such as Neon White and Deathloop and Borderlands. I'm actually pretty impressed by the Borderlands speedruns, as I see that they're 3 hours long, as well as, Mario Kart, Bastion, among others. It's Amyrlinn. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing good. Just chilling, still decompressing from SGDQ. Yeah, it's going pretty well.
Nice. So, what made you pick the game that you started with?
Yeah, so you mentioned that you use my speedrun.com for this, so that the lowest game on it actually isn't the first game. So I started with Super Meat Boy, and I have an actually very specific reason for why I started with this. In AGDQ 2013, Breakdown did a 106% Super Meat Boy run, and I was like, that seems pretty cool. I should learn how to run this game because I think I could do this. And then very quickly learned that that game is not easy. But I found that in December 2013, and then a week later, AGDQ 2014 started. So it's just all downhill from there.
Oh no.
And yeah, so I wound up learning and streaming Super Meat Boy for like 6 months or something like that, and just kind of did a lot with that, and then branched out to other games as I found them. You mentioned Borderlands, and a big influence on that was Shockwave, who originally we went to the same college, and so we met up at AGDQ 2015 and hung out. And he convinced me to run a Hat in Time, which I kind of consider that my true first game. That was the one I put the most time into. Was the beta, and then as we were waiting for Hat in Time to fully come out, he said, "Let's do Borderlands," and then that happened.
And then it kind of snowballed from there, as you're kind of the first-person shooter guy for the hotfixes.
Yep. For the hotfix, it's actually kind of interesting because for a while it didn't really seem like there was a lot of like FPS representation in like what GDQ was putting on. Like it was a lot of platformers, which like that's fine. Platformers definitely hold a lot of nostalgia for a lot of people, but for me the nostalgia has always been the FPS runs, the Call of Duties, the Halos, that kind of thing. And so I started my hotfix show to really give more variety and more spotlights to a lot of the more niche FPS runs out there.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. What was your initial goal for the Hat in Time runs?
My initial goal was to get sub 20 minutes in all hourglasses. And I never got it. And I will never actually be able to get it because you can't play the beta anymore.
Oh.
I got to 20 minutes and 15 seconds. And that was the closest I've ever been.
There's no, shall we say, methods to get like the beta version or anything like that?
You cannot sail the 7 seas for this one. And we've tried. Like, trust me, we've tried. Because the movement in the beta build is actually really different from the movement in like the full game. The movement in the full game is way better, but in the beta build it was kind of the prototype of what you could see. But yeah, for a long while, we really did try to get the beta running again, but Gears for Breakfast is really good at locking that down.
And no one's been like, hey, do you have this version around at all?
I mean, I still have the beta installed on my PC, but because it runs through Steam, it literally won't run any other way. They have a check on it that stops it from running.
Oh,
like we understand what's blocking us. It's just that there's no way to get around it.
Oh, that's a shame, because I know for Fashion Police Squad, the devs were like, "Oh, here's a speedrun build then if like this stuff doesn't work anymore." And it's like, huzzah.
And this is not to like knock Gears for Breakfast or anything. Like they're a really, really good company because they also give us a speedrun branch on the full release. Like we have, there's a 1.0 version that they've kept around in a beta branch for us, which is really tight. I have nothing but good things to say about Gears for Breakfast as interacting with them as a speedrunner.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I guess they just don't like the beta version, and they're like,
Yeah, it's not representative of the full product, which,
That's fair. I mean, a lot of betas are like that, so, and, we don't see a lot of, like, beta runs still available, so I guess it's just par for the course.
Yeah.
Was there a game that you either regret running or had wish you continued to learn?
So this one actually, I can answer both of those because there's answers to both of those questions that I have. So on my speedrun.com, you'll notice that I have a lot of one-off GameCube game runs. I think the most recent one is Winnie the Pooh's Rumbly Tumbly Adventure.
Okay.
There's one I don't have listed because the mods for the board rejected it, which understandable. I didn't have a video of it because this is all organized under a runner named Pearstrike, who would do what he called the meme game race. And so every GDQ, we'd all bring our GameCubes and some just like absolutely extremely bad like GameCube, like licensed GameCube game. And then we'd all race it in the practice room. And the one I regret the most is Spider-Man for the GameCube. That game was so bad that when I finished the race, I think I finished like normally for the meme game race, I finished in like top 5. You know, I'm not saying I was like a great player, but I kind of got how to do those games. Mm-hmm. I think I was like one of the last 3 people to finish the Spider-Man race. And it was so bad that I took my disc out of the GameCube and snapped it immediately because I just didn't want to have the game.
Poor GameCube disc. What did it do?
I was so bad at it. I was so bad. It was such a bad game.
And
I'm
this
sorry
was
to all the Spider-Man fans.
This is the movie game, right?
Yeah.
Luckily, Spider-Man 2 is a better game. You can actually walk on the streets.
Yeah, I don't remember much about it. I have put it out of my memory.
That's fair.
But a game I regret not continuing is actually BioShock Infinite. That's a game that's like fascinated me for such a long time. I think it's a really cool. It has a really cool run, but and there's a mod now to remove the RNG, which is great.
Yeah.
But I wish I could find the like time and the drive to go back to it and do that some more. So I thought it was a lot of fun.
This is going to tie into another question, so I'll just say it now. Are you looking forward to the, what was it, Clockwork Revolution? Is that what it was called? It's very BioShock-esque in the trailer. It was announced at the Microsoft Direct last weekend.
I actually don't think I saw this.
Oh, it was like the last game that they showed off at the conference or whatever. It's really weird talking about that stuff now because I'm like, it's basically E3 here. Yeah. It's just you're not calling it. So I'm always like, conference, and it's like, no, it's just a direct. And it's like, but yeah, it's got a lot of BioShock Infinite vibes. Also, time travel is involved, so that's a thing. I don't know if it's exclusive to Xbox or the Microsoft PC store, but they kind of made it sound like it was, because I think it's an Xbox Studio game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks really interesting. But it's just like, And it's funny because on the video itself, on Microsoft's page, it has it list. Oh, now it says Wasteland 3. When they released the trailer, it listed it as BioShock Infinite.
Whoops.
And it was like, oh, but now
I'm down. I've been Googling some stuff real quick, and this is cool. This is an aesthetic I'm definitely into.
Yeah.
I know at the very least, Blood Thunder will definitely be checking this out, so I'll probably see what he thinks.
But continuing with that question that it connects to, is there any games you're looking forward to running?
I mean, so there's games that I like want to learn that aren't necessarily like new games that are coming out. This is a weird thing that I've found that like I was talking with someone recently and there's not like a lot of, you know, the N64, the PlayStation 2 era has all these like really classic games, and there's not a lot of games coming out recently that I'm like, yeah, this one's going to be a true, you know, speedrunner's dream as far as like AAA games.
Right.
You know, for like indies, obviously, you know, like Neon White is my huge recommendation recently for like if you're a speedrunner and you like FPSs, like Neon White is your game. You know, the game owns so much. But like I've been picking up and learning a bunch of new games recently, and you know, I'll talk about that later because I can see the questions coming up. But one of the game I'm really looking forward to running, even though I know it's going to be really bad, is Gauntlet Dark Legacy for the PlayStation 2. Just because I have an immense amount of nostalgia for that game, and I think the whole arcadey feel of it is like very fun and very weird, and it's not like something that gets replicated a lot nowadays just because, you know, quarter crunchers aren't as like prevalent. in terms of game design, but
Yeah.
I just something about the dumb fantasy aesthetic just gets me, and I'm really looking forward to running it, and I think it's going to be very funny to do so.
Makes sense. Speaking of quarter crunchers, I started speedrunning Street Fighter 6.
Oh god.
I was just like, why not? I have access to the game.
My Discord has been trying to get me into that game, and I'm like, guys, you have to give me a chance to come to terms with the fact that like half of the people in this Discord are just gonna beat my ass relentlessly. So hang on.
Fair enough. Yeah, and it was just on a whim. It wasn't in my plans this year to do Street Fighter 6. It just happened.
Yeah, no, I mean, sometimes there's games that just catch you.
Yeah. Any games you're currently playing, casually or otherwise?
I maintain a very large library of MMOs that I rotate through. So casually, I'm playing Final Fantasy XIV because the new raid tier came out, World of Warcraft because the new raid tier came out, MapleStory because I maintain a couple characters there.
Now, there's a game I haven't heard of in like 10 years.
Hell yeah. I love MapleStory so much. I think it's such a good game. Like I also play old school RuneScape. So it's very pure, just you turn your brain off and the numbers go up. You know, I've been trying to figure out a way to work some kind of speedrunning in the MapleStory, but I can't figure out any way to like make it fair. So
okay.
Oh well.
Yeah, I'm attempting at some point when I buy the full game to do Savage Kafka runs in 14.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yes, this is going to happen at some point. I don't know how I'm going to make it happen, but I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah, and then old school RuneScape. I have a group Iron Man group going. All 5 of us still play, which I think is probably pretty rare for 5-man groups at this point, considering it started like a year and a half ago. Still play Final Fantasy 11 because I think that game is really good. And I've been playing Diablo 4 with my wife.
Nice.
And then outside of MMOs, I played Shantae and the Pirate's Curse recently because I saw the Sound Defense's run of it, SGDQ 2023, and I was like, that looks pretty cool. I'll pick it up and see how, see what it's like. I don't know if the run's necessarily for me, but I thought it was a pretty good game.
Now, have you seen the new McDonald's Game Boy Color game?
Oh God, I don't remember where I saw it, but someone mentioned that, and it was like, this might be a good run. I was like, oh, I don't. We'll see.
I think
it might have been Liz Starr talking about it.
I found out about it from Oscar, and then I was like, and then I've been telling people ever since, and I've gotten a few people to like start running it, and I'm like, good. I haven't touched the game yet, but I have a copy of it.
Oh, here he goes. Uranium Anchor mentioned it in the GDQ Slack, and was like, this might be a good game, and all of us were like, what are you talking about, dude?
From what I've been told, it only has 4 levels.
You know what?
And at least the first 2 are a grimace on a skateboard.
That owns. That's very funny.
Yeah, and you can play it in a web browser. It's terrible in a web browser. I recommend grabbing the game and using a controller or putting it on your Game Boy because it will work on an actual Game Boy. I don't know how you put it on a Game Boy, but it works.
Shoot, I used to have a Game Boy. I don't know where it is.
Is there a game that you love but could never run?
I mean, like outside of the various MMOs that I play that like are not runnable, I don't really think so. I think there's I think my love of certain games, like some games I pick up specifically to learn like the speedrun or to see if I like the gameplay enough to learn how to speedrun it. Like I picked up Final Fantasy 1 because I saw Ice Blue's first sub 2 hour run of that game, and it said, is this going to be a game that I'm going to like learning? And it was a good enough game. It's always good to have stuff like that in your back pocket just in case whatever happens. But yeah, I think generally most games like are at least feasible to be run for me, or I don't think it would diminish my enjoyment of them in any way. There's definitely some games that I wouldn't run just because of how long they are. Like one of my friends runs Persona 5 and that game's like 12 hours, so bud, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I have looked into doing it myself, and I'm like, okay, New Game Plus, It's such a strict rule set, too, because if you don't want to do New Game Plus, you have to do it the hardest difficulty, and you have to do it the true ending, and it's like, why are there so many restrictions? Maybe you don't have so many runners because it's so strict what you have to do.
Yeah, that and then like some of the longer PS1, PS2 Final Fantasies, although it's really nice that Final Fantasy X has that cutscene skipper run now that cuts it to like 4 hours, so that's pretty tight. But yeah, I think that winds up being the main reason that I like wouldn't run a game is just because the run is too long. And it's either I don't have time to do it or I would just like get mental boomed halfway through and my brain would turn off and I'd forget what I was doing.
That's fair. So that kind of also half answered another question, because another one of the questions is how do you decide on a game to run? And you kind of answered both at the same time. But if there's
Yeah.
anything you want to like add to that on like what your decision process is, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I generally the game has to be entertaining enough in like a casual sense for me to pick it up. Like, for example, a game that we both run, Fashion Police Squad. Like when I played that game for the first time, I was like, "This is tight. This game owns."
Yeah.
And I learned the speedrun. I still Dangerous needs to still convince me to come back and do some more of it. But like that game is so good.
Join us. Rejoin the fashion. Rejoin the squad. That's all you need to do.
But yeah, generally, if I'm learning a new game, I'll try like not to look up. Like sometimes it'll be as easy as like I see the run at a GDQ, and then I'll pick it up from there, and I'll use maybe some of the stuff that I remember from the GDQ run, but otherwise I'll try to play it through as like default vanilla as possible, and then from there I'll look up the run and basically do a semi-blind run alongside the run, whatever video I'm watching. Like as long as I can understand the tricks, if there's some weird clip out of bounds that I don't understand, like I'll go look that up. But generally, I'll just do a run alongside the game and then see where I can go from there. What I can pick up.
Mm-hmm. What is your opinion on IGT versus RTA?
Mine was heavily influenced again by Hat in Time. IGT is absolute king. It was drilled into me because we in the beta build of A Hat in Time, we just wound up having runners that had like worse PCs and they would lose 2 or 3 minutes to just having slower loads. And Gears for Breakfast actually worked with us and put in like a completely accurate speedrun timer. So I got influenced super early. IGT is the best timing method that we've ever had for video games. And I generally tend to believe that if a game is on PC, or at least there's a way to time in game, and the community doesn't use it, then like that's not good because it just makes it completely unfair. Obviously for like consoles and stuff, the loading is a little more similar. So you can use RTA for that and it'll be fine. But yeah, for PC games, you got to cut out those loads.
Yeah, that is understandable. I know that some console games will, the mods will specifically cut out loads. They do that for Goosebumps Dead of Night because I'm the only console runner and everyone else is a PC runner. And I'm like, okay. And yeah, because there's also certain tricks that won't work on console. It's the same thing with Fashion Police Squad because they're just not there. And it's like, okay.
Now that said, I run Borderlands 2, and we don't exactly make exceptions for consoles. A lot of the speedrun glitches that we do are just straight up not possible on console. So I don't know if I feel necessarily like that bad about it, but it is certainly a thing that like if you want to speedrun Borderlands 2, pretty much the only way to do it is on PC. We don't really have a lot of glitch hunters for console, and there's not that much you can do on it because depatching the game is incredibly hard.
Given that this is a show called Speedrunners and Coffee, what's your favorite coffee?
I'm about to get so much hate for this in that I don't drink coffee.
You're not the first person to say
it tastes very burnt to me. I don't know. I could never I never drank it in college and so I can never get into it. But I do like tea. I'm a huge fan of tea.
Okay. All right.
So this will be my similar answer. It depends on what I'm in the mood for. If I'm just going for some default like iced tea chilling at home, just straight black Lipton tea is the best.
Okay.
But if I'm out somewhere kind of nice, if I can get something fancy, there's a cafe in the town that I work in, and I'm not going to dox myself here by saying what town that is, but they do a really, really interesting like flavored black tea, and it's I'm typically an unsweet tea kind of guy. I don't really like sweet tea. but the black tea that they have is like slightly fruit, like it's not overpoweringly fruit flavored, but it's just enough that it's like, oh, this is nice. And I think it's a house blend because they're an independent brewery because they do coffee as well. So whenever I can get that, that's a good day.
All right. I might have something that you might be interested in. It's called David's Tea. Why is it interesting? Because they have over 100 flavors of tea. Different varieties, and they ship to the United States. They're a Canadian, company, and so, Canadian. But like, you like matcha teas? They got matcha teas, black teas, I don't know how to pronounce it, but the Rubio, is it Rubio? I don't know.
I'm looking at this. I got nothing. I would pronounce it Rebos, and then I'll get stoned to death by people who like tea.
Yeah, and like all kinds of teas, and it's like hot damn, and it's really cool. I go there all the time when I want teas. If like you don't have a specialty tea store or anything, like I've been addicted to Starbucks strawberry matcha tea as of late because they put like oat milk in it and they like put real strawberries and stuff in it, and it's really good. I used to get like an actual like frozen coffee from Starbucks, but as of late it's like, okay, I'm getting tea every time. And it's just a thing. And I also relate to the not having coffee in college thing because I didn't have coffee till like 2 years ago, and most of it is shit. To say the least. My first coffee I ever had, it was the worst thing ever. It was an iced tea with almond milk, and it was just god awful. Of course, it was from Tim Hortons, and as everybody who's listened to this podcast knows, I hate Tim Hortons with a passion. Don't go to Tim Hortons.
A Timmy's hater, huh?
Yes, a Timmy's hater. I am. Like, even before the day, because again, apparently McDonald's stole the rights to their coffee or whatever the fuck. It's interesting. We learned about it in Metroid Crimes episode. And it's like, and so if you want old-fashioned Tim Hortons coffee, you have to go to McDonald's because McDonald's has their beans and won't let them have their beans. And I don't know where Tim Hortons gets their beans now, but I also didn't drink Tim Hortons coffee when it was supposedly good, so I don't have this Tim Hortons nostalgia for their coffee. And so I'm just like, go to Starbucks. I will tell people to go to Starbucks over Tim Hortons every time because it's just
Totally
like
fair.
But I also prefer tea over coffee as well. I'm drinking a dirty chai right now, and I'm like, yeah, because again, I'm not huge on coffee. I have to have very specific things in the house if I'm gonna drink it.
Yeah, my wife is big into matcha, so I'll probably send this to her, have her check it out.
Yeah, because they've got peach matcha, vanilla matcha, like 20 different matcha flavors. It's kind of incredible. They even have like matcha stir sticks, like bamboo matcha stir sticks and stuff. And it's like, oh, so you want to get like super into traditional matcha? They can possibly have you covered. Getting back to speedrunning, how do you not burn yourself out of speedruns?
Well, I don't know if I don't know if I could give great advice because I legitimately did burn myself out of Borderlands 2. Mainly just because, and this is more of community history than anything else. For a long time, the Borderlands 2 community was fairly dead. So it was pretty active on release, and then it was fairly active for a while. And right before we started, me and Shockwave did co-op for like 3 or 4 years straight. And right before we started running, it was Fun Cannon and Blackwave, who were the two main active co-op runners. And right about when Shockwave and I started, those two fell off. Fun Cannon kept doing some one-player runs and actually teamed up to run co-op all quests with me and Shock. But for a long, long time, like I'm talking probably 1 or 2 years, Shockwave and I were the only people running Borderlands 2. And for a while, we continued because there was always more discoveries we were making. You know, there's always something, oh, we found this cool new thing. Let's go implement this into a run. You know, we thought of this 15-second time save. Let's go implement this. And then after a while, it just came to the point where we hit basically what we considered our perfect run. Obviously, obviously that's since been beaten because there are people who have found more and are more skilled than us now. But we hit a perfect run, and at that point were just kind of like, okay, I guess we're done. So I don't know if I have any like stellar insights for avoiding burnout. I think I guess my main advice would just to be like, if you feel like you're getting close to burned out in your game, or if you're just, kind of not feeling it right then, don't keep pushing yourself. Like, absolutely just take a break. Maybe you don't even speedrun for a little while. I'm not really an advocate of like making some big, I'm retiring from the speedrunning community type stuff, because I don't really, it's like old school RuneScape in a way. I don't think anybody ever fully retires from speedrunning. I think you're just taking a long break, and the hobby's going to be here regardless of whether you're here or not. So you can go hell as long as a year, maybe more, without speedrunning anything, and I think that's fine. I think you can still call yourself a speedrunner. But if you need to take a break that long to play something else or to speedrun another game, do that, because I think it's much better that everybody is like mentally healthy when playing their games and not like forcing themselves to do any sort of grinds that they don't want to do, or there's always the meme of a runner gets a really good time and he goes, oh, this run is terrible, and I think that's it's funny as like a meme, but I don't really think it's the kind of like mindset that we want to inflict on new people coming in, because I think you should be really proud of the runs that you do, and I think you should be having fun with the runs that you do, and if you're not having fun, then stop doing it, because I think it's much more worth it to play games and things that you really want to be doing rather than forcing yourself to do anything.
Yeah, that is completely fair and makes sense. Has there been any discussion since? I don't know how much your perfect run has been beaten, but has there been a discussion about going back to it now that it has been beaten to see if you can improve it?
So we got, let me actually look this up. Our perfect run, quote unquote, has been beaten by over 11 minutes at this point.
Okay.
And that's mainly because Unjust Action and Deceptix are two of the best runners to ever do it in this game. They are unironically what I would consider some of the best players at Borderlands ever. I mean, we could go back to it. The problem is it's such a high intensity, high skill run that it would take us a while to build back up to that consistency that we had.
Okay.
And I don't know if our mental would survive that buildup. It's also like we were running Borderlands 2 at a particularly interesting time in our lives. So like both of us had just graduated college. Both of us were single for a majority of the time that we were running it. And we also lived together. So like we really just had the perfect storm of like, oh, we can just hang out all day and then annihilate this game. And so, we can't exactly replicate those conditions now. Like, I'm married, and Shock and I both have other things that we're doing, both for GDQ in general, but also just like in, life.
Yeah.
So replicating those conditions would be super hard. But it was for those 1 or 2 years where we were just running it like consistently and just finding stuff, great. I wouldn't trade that for anything. I think that was so much fun.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense that conditions have changed. It would be a little bit harder to do. Is there a skip you wish was in a game you run?
So I have a bounty out for this, and you can go look this up. It's still active. In Borderlands 2, there is a part called the Control Core Angel, where you go downstairs and there's a bunch of story happening. Angel's, oh no, she's trapped. Gotta save her.
Oh no, she's like Jack's kid. Oh no.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, I think 4 or 5 minutes of basically just an auto scroller, because the enemies down there aren't going to give us trouble, so we just kill them immediately. So it's just a matter of wading through all the animations, and people have found ways to shave seconds here and there by doing dialogue skips and perfect positioning. But ultimately it's just an auto scroller, and so I have a bounty out that's still active to this day, although I know nobody's ever going to find it, where if you can skip sections of or all of Control Core Angel, then I will pay you US dollars.
Okay. And again, it would save like 5 minutes.
Yeah, something like that. It depends on exactly how much you skip, but it would save like up to 5 minutes, which is
Okay.
a lot.
What advice would you have given to your past self with your first speedrun, knowing what you know now?
Don't be so doomer on frame rate. They're going to fix it.
Okay.
In the Hat in Time beta, there was an issue where the lower you set your frame rate, the higher you would jump because they didn't code the physics correctly. And it led to basically everybody running the game at 12 FPS, except for certain points where you had to run it at 60. So it was so bad because the game looked like shit because it was just running it was running at 12 FPS. Nobody liked playing on it, but it was faster. It was faster by like 10 or 15 seconds, which is a lot for a short run. Yeah, I was not happy with the frame rate issues, but they mostly fixed it in the full release.
Okay.
There's still a few snafus here and there, but
no game is perfect.
Yeah.
Speaking of games, if you could create a game from an entirely different genre and add it to your favorite series, what genre of game would you add?
I mean, I would add an FPS of something. No, actually, that's a lie. I'm sorry. I wouldn't. This is going to be shocking coming from the FPS guy. I wouldn't add an FPS. I would make dot hack into a real MMO.
Okay. You know, I'm surprised they haven't actually done that.
So they have, sort of. It was this, I think, Chinese-only MMO called Fragment, and there are still, like, private servers around for it, but it wasn't a big thing, and it also kind of happened back when the first Dot Hack quadrilogy was coming out. So it didn't really take off, but I would make that game into a real MMO, because I think exploring that world would be the most interesting thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then absent from that, I would just I would make another Borderlands game.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still kind of shocked. Like, seriously, it's an anime MMO. Why isn't anime MMO a real MMO? But then again, I could say the same thing about Overlord. Though Overlord is an isekai and not being trapped in an MMO, it's being transported while you are a character. By the way, if you haven't seen Overlord, you might enjoy it.
I've heard of it. I'm actually astonished that there isn't a video game of, unless there is and I missed it, that there isn't an Overlord video game, because I feel like that would lend itself super well to
there is, but it's a Metroidvania and you're playing a character who dies pretty early on.
Okay, never mind.
And it's really weird. I haven't played it yet, but there isn't like a proper Overlord game where you play as Ainz and whatnot. But like it's interesting. I kind of wanted to pick up and see how speedrunnable the Overlord Metroidvania game is, because I love that series. I binged watched it a couple of weeks back with a friend, and it is fantastic. But yeah, where do you see yourself in 5 years time speedrun wise?
I don't know. I'd like to think that at least in terms of, so I guess I'll answer this in two ways. At least in terms of work that I'm doing within the speedrun community, I'd like to think I'd still be working with and for Games Done Quick in 5 years, because I like the organization a lot. I like putting on the marathons. That's generally like one of the things I look forward to every year, because I run production for them, and I just recently started running some committee stuff for them. So I help pick the games for the marathon, and I think that's genuinely one of the most fun things in the world. Like getting to showcase a game in a marathon that like has never been showcased before, and the runner is completely new, and they get to have that like moment of, I'm on the GDQ stage. This is something I've been trying to do for years, is like so cool to see and so cool to listen to. I love hearing runners like gush about, oh my god, I just did a GDQ run, this is so cool. Like that's so much fun, and I really hope that I'm still doing that in 5 years. This isn't like foreshadowing or anything, just who knows where I'm going to be in 5 years.
Yeah. GDQ question: has there ever been a gigantic pop off?
There have been a few, and I can. There's a bunch of ones that stick in my memory. There's the most famous one of Grand Pooh Bear stomping the stage during, I think it was A Link to the Past race with Andy and turning off his console,
Oh, no.
which was unironically, I think, one of the funniest moments ever. So the way we had the tech set up is, I think the consoles. I wasn't tech for this run, but I remember asking someone about it afterwards. I think the consoles were by their feet, and Andy's
Okay.
console was like an older one, so it was a little like the cart was a little less stable.
Okay.
So I think Pooh Bear died or something, or had some kind of setback, and just stomped his foot, and it instantly switched off Andy's console. which is so funny because people like apparently to this day still dog him over, like, oh dude, he cheated in the in the race. I thought it was pretty funny. But
Yeah.
let's see some of the other famous ones. I don't know if these are necessarily famous, but they stick in my mind because they're runs that I saw. I think it was Retro Brando at the end of his Mushihime Sama run at AGDQ 20. No, it was Gusto. Sorry, I had to go look that up. Maybe Retro Brando was on like right after. If you haven't seen this run or the end of it, I would highly recommend you go watch this because it's a shmup, right? And it's a bullet hell. I don't know how he did some of this stuff, but he does this. I think he 1cc's the whole thing, like just absolutely crushes it the whole way through. And at the end of his run, proceeds to like turn to the crowd and give this like, I could do it. Like, you follow your dreams. You could do anything you want. Just, it was so cool to see because it was,
Yeah.
he 1cc'd a super hard game and he's like popping off on stage and just screaming to the audience, you could do anything. That was really cool. And then the one that lives in my head forever is Konasumi's pop off during Minor Ultra Adventures. It's in the awful block, so you know what you're getting into there. He made a really hard jump and screamed at the top of his lungs like it peeked out the mic, I'm hype, let's go. It blew out the compressor. Like,
Oh no.
it was so funny. But yeah, it was, again, also legendary run. Highly recommend watching it.
Yeah, because the reason I bring the pop-up thing, I've never seen a pop-off happen at GDQ, but I used to be like in the FGC and there are shit tons of that there. So I was just kind of like, is there anything like that for speedrunning? Because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of them. You just have to know where to look and where to go.
That's fair. Do you have any event rituals?
So I work the 3 to 7 a.m. shift every GDQ, which it's not the most glamorous shift, but I do it. And every event, I'll get a case of Monster Energy and drink one every night.
Okay, that wasn't
just
as
to keep
bad as I
myself
thought
awake.
it was.
But that's my ritual. It's like, I know I don't drink energy drinks at any other time during the year. It's just during GDQ. So I know when I'm tasting that, it's like, all right, it's time to go.
Okay. Yeah, I was expecting to hear, and I drink a case a night
every day.
And I was gonna be like, oh no, your heart's gonna explode. Yeah, because I remember seeing your tweet about not sleeping for like 3 days straight or something this past GDQ, and I was like, oh no, this does not sound good.
Well, that's mainly because, so I work 3 to 7 a.m. and then I go to sleep and I wake up at noon because that's when people start doing stuff. I gotta be doing stuff at the event.
Yeah, okay. What would you say is your proudest moment as a runner?
I mean, definitely a callback to earlier. For sure, my proudest moment is hitting the first 125 in Borderlands 2 co-op, because that was, for the time, the god run. Like, on our sum of best, I think we had maybe 30 seconds that we thought was reasonable to save from like what we knew at the time, but that was it. Like, we didn't think we could do any better.
Nice.
And just, that was the culmination of like so much time, so much work we had put into it. I think the run happened like right after a GDQ too, so it was just one of those, like, we did it, we hit the peak, and I don't think we could have I don't think we really could have done it any better.
That's fair. And on the contrary to that question, what was your your lowest moments as a runner?
I don't know. I don't really have like any real low moments. Like I haven't. There's never I've never had any real terrible times running.
Mm-hmm.
I work really hard to not get tilted on stream.
Yeah.
So I don't really have any like, gamer moments or anything. I don't. Oh shoot! I should see if I could find it. I don't know if you will show clips on this, and I'll find it later. But there's this clip of me falling out of my chair live while I'm doing a run.
Oh no.
And I guess that's my lowest because I wound up on the ground. But I went for a drink, and you could see in the background my chair tip over. And this is when I was still living with Shock. He turned around and said, "Hey man, are you okay?" And the third person I was running with went, "Hey man, you got to get up. We're doing a speed run." So I think we PB'd that run too, which is pretty funny.
Nice. That's great. But oh my god. The fact that he just turns and goes, "Hey, we're doing this." Oh, that's a good one. Do you have any influences within the speedrun world?
Like people who have influenced me?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the one who started it all was Breakdown, and I actually told him that a few years ago, and he didn't know me very well at the time, so he was like, "Okay, thanks, man." But I don't know, it was cool getting to like see the people that like influenced me to basically pick this hobby up in the first place. Like, there's so many people that I could talk about that their runs inspired me to do something. Like Breakdown's 106% Meat Boy run inspired me to start picking up Meat Boy and start speedrunning. Sorry, I'm muting as I cough. Teaminator's Beautiful Joe run in 2014, which that game still hasn't been showcased again because he was just that good. It really showed that like, holy crap, these people are so good at video games. And his commentary, it still, I think, holds up as one of the best GDQ runs I've ever seen. Like, I wish my commentary could be as good as his in that run. M1 account and M1 account's Cave Story run, and the interactions that he had with Azure during that run, it showed me that runs can be funny, and you don't have to like be serious all the time, because there's just a point in the run where someone donated and said, "Hey, here's $50. Azure, will you slap M1 in the head?" And Azure goes, "Yeah, okay." And gets up and just hauls off and smacks him, and his head like fully jerks sideways.
Oh dear.
And then like a few minutes later, someone goes, "All right, here's $50. Give M1 a hug." And Ashley goes, "Okay," and gets up and gives him a hug. It was just so dumb and goofy, and I was like, "It's great."
Yeah.
But yeah, and then like Blood Thunder's near unbroken streak of appearing at GDQs, because he is so good at strategically picking what games he runs, and he changes it up every event. He like almost never submits the same game twice in a row. And he just somehow knows like, oh, it's been long enough, I'm gonna submit this game, and it gets in. And he's just so good at picking like what hasn't been shown off in a while, or like what games committee is quote unquote missing for like whatever blocks we're trying to fill. And it's wild. I'm impressed by it every single time.
The last question is this: if people want to find you, where can they?
Twitch.tv/Amyrlinn. I'm gonna be doing a lot of GDQ prep for the next few months, because there's a few runs that I really think have a good chance of getting in, and I really want to work on getting it. I want to work on Quake. There's a level pack that I'm working on for that to get better at speedrunning it, and another very janky PS2 game called Eve of Extinction. It's this very weird, esoteric, like beat 'em up. Your girlfriend is a sword, and you have to go kill the bad guys and get your girlfriend out of the sword.
Okay.
I have a lot of nostalgia for it because I played it when I was younger, so I've been playing it lately, and it's goofy and funny, and I want to get that run in, because I think it would be a funny late night run. And just before, in case anyone's thinking this, I'll let everybody in on a little backdoor underground secret. Committee members are not allowed to talk about their own runs on committee, just in case people were curious about that. Like, I'm on the GDQ Games committee, so I'm one of the people like picking runs for the event, but there's a like explicit rule in place that if we submit anything, we're not allowed to like talk about it. So other people have to like the run enough to pitch for it to be in the event.
So sorry, You know what I'll say? I'll talk about this off the air. Yes, thank you so much for coming on. I super appreciate it. And we will see you all next Saturday. Thank you all so much. Bye-bye. And then I just need this to play for about 10 seconds because I don't have any of my filters on like I thought I did. Oops.